Alright guys, I am back to finish this video. I had to do it in 2 parts just because I can only make the videos so long. So technically we are still in day 8. I guess you can consider this part 2 just to kind of finish up. We're on the back side where it has like this table box format. So again, we're technically in day 8, just finishing like that last page of stuff. So if you have your paper, you can split it up or you can just fill it in with me. So starting from the beginning to kind of recap here, we did greatest common factor, GCF. So things to remember with GCF is, first thing to remember is it could be a number, or it could be a variable, or it could be both. And we've seen this happen a few times. Okay, so just, a little side note before we get started. So if I look at this first problem, it has 5x squared plus 35x equals 0. It has equals 0, so that means I'm going to solve this to get answers at the end. Okay, so if I look at my steps, the first step is GCF. So I'm going to see if I can take a number, which would be 5, out of both pieces. And then I'm going to look to see if I can take a variable out of both pieces. I notice the first one has a variable, so let's take it out. And the other one has a variable, so let's take it out. I can't take any more than that. So when I rewrite this, that 5x goes to the front. And let's figure out what we have left. 5 goes into 5 one time. I had 2 x's, but I took one away, so it leaves me with 1 left. Then 5 goes into 35 7 times. I had an x, but I pulled it out in the front, so there's none left. And then it equals 0. Again, it equals 0 means I'm going to keep going. I'm going to solve this. So then step 2 is to factor this. I don't have anything to factor. See how there's no x squared? There's no quadratic function to factor. So then I move to step 3. That is ZPP, zero product property. So take each piece that has x in it, set it equal to 0. So 5x is equal to 0. I divide both sides by 5. I get x is equal to 0. You can write that as 0, 0. That's one of your answers. You can do the same thing for this other piece. X plus 7, set it equal to 0, subtract 7 to the other side, and you get x is equal to -7. You can also write that as an ordered pair. And that was one of the methods we did in the beginning, greatest common factor. Just a little recap on that and solving it using greatest common factor. So if you look on the next part, just over to the right, it says difference of squares. So if it has that equal sign, I need to make sure that it is set equal to 0. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 4 to the other side. So it's nothing on the left. So I put a 0 equals 36x squared minus 4. So I just got it set equal to 0. So the first thing I'm going to look for is the first thing I'm going to look for is GCF. So I'm going to figure out if I can take a number or a variable out of here. And actually, you can. This one, I could actually take a 4 out of each piece. So if I do that, I have 0 equals 4 goes into 36 9 times with x squared. And then 4 goes into -4 1 time. So I could take out a GCF there, and that's actually going to be fine. And then I want to figure out step 2 is how to factor this. And when I say factor this, see this part that I'm highlighting red? The part with the x squared. So remember, if you want to factor a binomial, you want to make sure that it has a minus sign. So it does. That's good. And you want to make sure they're perfect squares. So is 9 a perfect square? Yes, it is. It's 3. And is 1 a perfect square? Yes, it is. It's 1. So I'm going to go ahead and I have 0 equals 4. That just drops down. And then I make my factors. I'm going to go ahead and put my numbers in. So 9x squared separates into 3x and 3x because the square root of 9 is 3. So I separate that out. And then the 1 separates into 1 and 1 because the square root of 1 is 1. See how the pieces are exactly the same? That's good. You want that. One of them, however, is going to be plus and one of them is going to be minus. Okay, the reason I have to keep going, I'm not finished with this problem, is because it has an equals 0. So I need to take each piece that has x. So don't worry about the 4 that doesn't have an x in it. Take each piece that has x, solve for x. So this first one, I am subtracting 1 to the other side. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 3. And this first one, I get x is equal to negative 1/3. So I can write that as an ordered pair, negative 1/3 comma 0. And I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. It's going to look very similar. 3x minus 1 is equal to 0. I add 1 to the other side. I divide by 3, and I get positive 1/3. I can write that as an ordered pair, positive 1/3 comma 0. And there's my two answers. Okay, going down towards the bottom, we have two more boxes. So this first box is factoring trinomials. This is the method of guess and check, and this is actually going to be our simpler method. And the reason I know it's the easier one is because see where I highlighted green? It has a 1 in the front, which means it's our simpler version. So what I'm going to do is what multiplies to 12 and adds to 7. So the things that multiply to 12 are 12 and 1, 6 and 2, 3 times 4. And I need to pick which combination here should I use to get me the 7. And I'm going to use the 3 and the 4. If they're both positive, that'll give me the positive 7 that I want. So when I write this out, let me get a little more space here. I need to write 0 equals, and then I need to write my factors. Separate out x squared into x and x. One of them has the positive 3. We already determined that. And the other one has the positive 4. It has the equals 0, so do not stop. I solved this because it has the minus sign. I solved this because it has the equals 0 sign. So I go ahead and I take each piece that has x in it, set it equal to 0, just do a little bit of solving, and I get x is equal to negative 3, so negative 3 comma 0. And then same thing for this other piece, set that equal to 0, x plus 4 is equal to 0. I subtract 4 to the other side, and I get negative 4 comma 0. And that would be my other solution. I have two answers. Okay. Let's go over to this next box, our last box. We're almost there. It says factor trinomials. It technically is the same method of the one we just did. It's just the harder version. The reason it's harder is because it has a 2 in the front here. So I'm going to go with those steps. Step 1 is GCF. I do not have a GCF here. So then I do step 2, which is factor. So let's figure out how to factor this trinomial that's going to be guess and check. Well, multiplies to 5, adds to 3, that whole thing. 5 times 1. That's my only thing I could do. Let's go ahead and separate this out. Make sure you have your equals 0. I need to split up 2x squared. So I'm going to split this up into 2x times 1x. You then need to be very careful on the order. Order does matter. So should I put the 5 first? Should I put the 1 first? What should the signs be? That's on you to figure out. That's the point of factoring. Okay, that's why this stuff is hard. So when I write this, I'm going to need to put the 5 first and the 1 second. And if you remember, we went ahead and multiplied the insides and we multiplied the outsides. And we needed these orange pieces, we needed these to add to that 3x. The only way to get those to add to 3x is if the 5 was positive and the 2x was negative. If that was the case, that would give me the positive 3x that I want. So then I kind of backtracked here. So if I want a positive 5x, then I need a positive 5. If I want a negative 2x, I need a negative 1. And that orange part is simply how we checked our work. So from here, step 3 is zero product property. So I take each piece that has x in it, 2x plus 5. I set it equal to 0. I go ahead and subtract 5 to the other side. Then I divide by 2, and I get that one of my solutions is negative 5 over 2, and I could write that as an ordered pair, negative 5 over 2 comma 0. There's one of my answers. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the other part that has x in it. X minus 1 is equal to 0. This one's a little nicer. All I have to do is add 1 to the other side, and my answer is 1 comma 0. And there's my two answers. Okay, again, that was just kind of a quick overview on how to solve and then a couple of the different methods. Again, each problem is slightly different. I know I said this in a previous video, but it really is practice. I'm trying to give you some steps. I'm trying to show you a ton of different examples in a variety of problems, but it simply just comes down to practice and how confident you are in the material. So if you need more exposure or you just need more material, go onto YouTube and Google factor by grouping, and a bunch of stuff will come up. Or go onto YouTube and Google greatest common factor, or search greatest common factor, and I'm sure a bunch of stuff will come up. They're not going to match our notes exactly, but it's just still the same topic, and it might help you to listen to somebody else explain it if you don't get my explaining. Again, go into Canvas, check to see what your assignment is. We just finished the notes for this unit, so we're going to determine what kind of test or assessment we're going to do, but make sure you're staying on top of the work so you're getting your points.